Imagination with the Healing Garden, and I am chilling. This is my casual space. I've decided because I want to like just chill and lounge and unwind, and I don't want to talk too depth into anything at the moment. I had this massive. It's like I understand the situation, and you have this umbrella understanding, and then you understand, you process, and you go, oh, now I see the big picture. And then it just keeps going and going. And every time you span out and you look down and you expand, it's this massive comprehension suddenly of, oh, now I understand where all the pieces fall. And it's so funny. I was on my website yesterday and the day before, and I was going through it, and I could see where I had written Triadic healing when I was a stage 5, and Triadic healing when I was a stage 6, and a stage 7. And now I'm looking at it going, okay, so now it's something completely different. And it's not really different. It's just I've been able to refine it. So it's like a refining. And what I put together now is basically there's 3 parts to healing. There is remembering, well, actually, it's just remembering and understanding. But you also have to purge societal expectations. So on my link tree, I was working on this morning, and I went nurture, which is remembering the God self, remembering who you are. And then discipline is purging the societal expectations. And understanding is unsticking your mind's processing. That's it. So I have that now on my link tree. And it is completely different. It allows me to create a smoother, clearer path. It allows me to reshape the way I do everything so that I can dive deep into this stuff and start delivering it, which is what I do now on my website. Is I'm basically putting together a walkthrough called Get Started. And it's an extraordinary journey. I look back at it and I call it the journey of authenticity. And that is really it. It's the journey of authenticity. It's not healing. Healing is such an inadequate, shitty word. It is such a tiny little, healing is this much. This is what we're doing. And when we start, we think, I'm going to go this much. And then you get to that much and you realize, oh, I'm not done. And then you get this far. Oh, I'm still not done. And then you get this far. And then your entire perspective shifts because you realize, what can of worms did I just open? And you're in therapy for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, healing. And that's the problem, is we're not using the right words. We're not going in with the right expectations. You have no idea what you are doing. And when I sat down and I was looking at it and putting all of my work together, I went, healing is remembering who you are and understanding what happened to you so you can process it. The reason why we don't understand what happened is because our processing got damaged. That's abuse. And I broke down this whole what happens during abuse and how they catch you in a logic loop, basically. They put you on purpose in a logic loop, putting you in a place of confusion, a lack of understanding, so they can make you vulnerable enough to abuse you. That's what they did to you. And once you understand that, you can just unstick it. And it's not always intentional. Sometimes you're just put there by accident. Sometimes you're put there because somebody intentionally does that to you. Narcissists do that to you on purpose. Predators do that to you on purpose. But then you also have not on purpose abuse. And there's a lot of people who really struggle accepting that even if it's accidental or somebody means well, it can still end up being abuse. And all of it is still just societal expectations. Every single bit of abuse is a societal expectation forced on you. An abuser who physically hurts you expects you to let them. They expect you to not tell anyone. They expect you to allow it. A religion that is forced on us is our parents expecting you to accept their ways. Behavior that isn't yours, clothing that you don't want to wear, a job that you don't want, an education or a college that you go to, the name of your child that you don't want to name. All of these things are societal expectations. right down to, and it's an ugly example, but it's true, when we're sexually abused. They expect you to let them. They expect you to allow their abuse. They expect you to not tell anyone about it. They expect you to cooperate with their abuse. And your authentic self is screaming, I don't want to. I don't want that. And we are put in a position where we have to honor the expectations of them or honor ourselves. And our society, societal expectations, teaches us that we have to accept and conform to the societal expectations, the very thing that abuses us. So in addition to the societal expectations abusing us, they also have the expectation that we are supposed to allow it. Authentic living is when you step up and you say, I don't allow this anymore. But we know that that choice comes with societal condition or conditional living, conditional belonging, conditional love. You're going to be loved, you're going to belong, you're going to have a home, you're going to be secure, you're going to be fed, you're going to have your bills paid for, if and only if you obey. Expectations is obedience. It's slavery. Because you are now making choices not based on what you want, not based on your authenticity. You are now making choices based on your own survival. I had this massive epiphany this morning around 2 a.m. My partner called me and we had a conversation that was insightful, and I was able to see things and suddenly understand. I felt the understanding in my mind shift and unstuck us where we've been stuck for literally a year and a half. I felt it shift finally and unstick. So I wrote him a few letters, and then this morning I summarized. And as I wrote the letters and I put everything into perspective, as I put everything into a way of understanding so he and I finally can understand what this is and what's going on, it clicked. And suddenly everything shifted and it unstuck. And I felt the calm and the release in my cognitive function right here, just break, release, and then drain. And I went, there it is. And so many people told me to dump him. Societal expectation is to throw away people that you don't understand. That is a societal expectation. To throw away people we don't understand. Instead of seeking to understand, we just throw them away. And the thing is, when you throw away people because you don't understand, you still don't understand. And the pain stays with you. That's why 20 years down the road, you can still have significant heartbreak over somebody and you can't let them go. That's what closure is. Closure is understanding. And you search for an explanation that will give you closure. Now, it doesn't matter if the explanation is right or wrong. In most cases, it's wrong. But I didn't want an explanation that was going to give me closure no matter what. I wanted the truth. I wanted to have an understanding that reflected the actual situation and not what I was going to bullshit myself to say. And I found it last night. I found it this morning. And I was able to pass that information on to him. And I could feel everything shift. And it just made perfect sense. And suddenly the last 2 years, the insanity of last 2 years, the insanity of my entire life suddenly made extreme sense. And that's it, is insanity. Insanity is just a lack of understanding. That is all insanity is. It is not understanding. So when you understand, the insanity goes away because the processing is finally completed. And you can get stuck in processing for your entire life. There are things that could have happened to you when you were 2, and you're just trying to process what happened. And so you're stuck on this thing that happened to you. And you're stuck in a logic loop. It's absolutely 100% a logic. And logic loops are my forte. That was my favorite branch of philosophy, was studying logic loops and formal argument debate and understanding how premise and formal argument works. So understanding logic, I was a logician before I was anything else. Before I was a musician, no, that's not true. I was a musician before I was a logician. And living as a logician was astronomical. It allowed me to identify these logic loops that I got caught in, that people got caught in. And once you're able to identify the logic loop, oh, it makes perfect sense. Your abuser basically said to you at one point, here's my opinion, but it's really a fact. And that's a lie. In fact, that is the number one lie that's out there. Here is my opinion, and it's a fact. And that is the lie that all of us have been told. That is a lie that we tell other people. Here is my opinion, but it's a fact. And that's not how it is. People flout their opinions claiming that they're facts when they're not. And because they're using the F word, the fact word, we're immediately, oh, well, we can't argue with that, but it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense because it doesn't belong in our perspective. So we get caught in a logic loop, trying to understand it, reprocessing and re-remembering the situation, looking for additional evidence. It doesn't make sense. Reprocessing it, re-remembering it, doesn't make sense. Trying to figure it out, rerunning the scenario, remembering the situation. It doesn't make sense. And we're stuck in that loop over and over again because we lack one simple fact, and that is that bit of information they gave you was their opinion, and they claimed it was a fact. They presented it as an fact. They alluded that it was a fact. So you take that and you get stuck. And when you are in that logic loop, you are in a place of vulnerability. Confusion is very dangerous for the perspective. It is very dangerous for the perspective. So you get settled into this very dangerous, vulnerable space where your perspective is now up and available for anyone to come along and damage and tamper with. It literally puts your perspective in a space of being allowed to be tampered with. And that is when they swoop in and they do whatever they want. And in addition to that, when you are in that logic loop, your memory doesn't work right. Your memory does not work right. So not only are they in there tampering with your perspective at this time of significant vulnerability, but your memory is also not where it needs to be. So they can pretty much do whatever you want and you're not going to remember. Oh, you remember, but you don't remember. Your subconscious mind processes it for you and files it away and then keeps it away from you because it doesn't make sense. So once you process, then the memory can surface. Then you can remember what was done to you, and then you will see it properly as the abuse it was, and then you can release the trauma. That completely rewires your nervous system. It reshifts everything. Your behavior goes back to the way it was because the invasive perspective is then rejected where the behavioral defense, PTSD, is stored. It is rejected. It doesn't exist anymore, and your entire brain rewires itself. And the processing is complete. So you finally remember who you are and you understand what happened to you. Every trauma can be broken down by this. Every trauma. But don't get carried away with which mental disorder you have. Which mental illness are you dealing with? Not relevant. Because all mental illnesses are from perspective abuse. So if you address perspective abuse instead of the individual little problems you have, because all of these, whether it's narcissistic abuse syndrome, whether it's borderline personality disorder, whether it's PTSD or ADHD, don't argue with me, it's ADHD. There's substantial information on it. ADHD, whether it's bipolar, it doesn't matter. Whether it's depression, it's all the same thing. You suffered from perspective abuse. Someone put their social expectation onto you. Your processing got stuck. You got caught in that logic loop because somebody lied to you and tampered with your system. They then abused you in your vulnerable state, and you can't get over the processing for it to make sense. So you don't understand, and you don't remember who you are because your system is completely out of whack, and you have this massive invasive perspective now putting a behavioral defense inside of you so that you will adapt to this logic loop that's been completely tampered with. So when you understand that it's just perspective abuse, that your abuser did this to you in a state of putting you in that logic loop and then tampering with you to change your processing. And the question really is, how did they do it? Now you're looking at the how was it done? How did they do this? Look for the how. How did they do this to you? And it's subtle. It's every time they use the words, you can't do that. You are wrong. That's not right. Every time they gaslit you. That is what happened. Gaslighting is this process. That's why gaslighting is so evil. It is the worst thing for your mental mind, for your mental health. Everyone's going around going, oh my God, gaslighting is so bad. Why? Tell me why gaslighting is so bad. You're right. It is really fucking bad. How bad is it? Can you tell me? By the way, this is what I call a light casual conversation. I just realized how intense this is and how like, whoa. And I'm going, this is what I call a casual conversation. When I go back to perspective talk, it's where I'm at now. I'm on YouTube. I'm talking about the God self. I'm digging into authenticity. I'm talking about the authentic journey. I'm redefining everything we think about healing so we can start changing the way we think about healing. Because when we change the way we think about healing, we actually heal properly. But we have so much gaslit garbage around our concept of what we think healing is. I have a very vulgar comment to make, and I don't want to make it on Facebook. But it's authentic, Anna. Make it. We're just jacking each other off. There's so much distraction happening. And as a result, no one's getting healed. It's taking 20 years because we were told it takes time. No, it doesn't. It does not take time. It does not take time to heal. It takes knowledge to heal. It takes awareness to heal. It takes remembering who you are and understanding. You've been lied to. You've been lied to about the healing process. You've been lied to about what healing is. You've been lied to about societal expectations. You've been told that there is no cure. You've been told such fucking bullshit and garbage. That is how much you've been lied to. So you have all of these misleading beliefs built up on these societal expectations with all of your limitations, and you are living obediently. Good for you. How happy are you? How's that obedience treating you? Obedience is not happy, because obedience is living by someone else's expectations. You want to piss me the fuck off? Tell me how great you think obedience is. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That'll piss me off. Obedience is slavery. Do not sit there and tell me how great slavery is. So yeah. Once you identify all those lies they told you, and you start to see all of them, once you start to realize, once you become aware, once you can recognize the bullshit, you can't live in the bullshit anymore. You start to realize how completely saturated our society is with the bullshit. And it's on a level like you would not believe. It's on a level. Sixes get it. Sixes see it. Sixes sit there. Those are our beautiful conspiracy theorists. Oh my God, do I love them. And they're not theories. It is a fucking conspiracy. They are not wrong. They're called theorists, and they're told that they're crazy because fourth perspectives don't understand them. So they're labeled to discredit them. Easiest way to take credibility away from someone is just dismiss them as a mental illness. It's a great tool to gaslight somebody. That way, oh, they can't possibly have any credibility because they're crazy. Fifth perspectives love that bullshit. And it's not true. It's absolutely not true. So I've revamped everything that I've done with the Healing Garden. Not revamped it, I completely condensed it down, and now I'm cleaning it up, I'm tightening it up. My Linktree account is down below. Go ahead and grab that. And you can see under Triadic Healing, there's what is Triadic Healing, getting started, and it's a full walkthrough. All of it's free. And then we have 3 processes. We have nurturing, remembering the God self. We have discipline, purging societal expectations. We have understand, unsticking your mind's processing. And then I actually have celebrating the self. And this is exactly it. It is, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this. I'm doing it right now. I'm going to add it. It is the last stage. It's basically when you celebrate. I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what this is called. I got to find the wording because it's really a huge part of it, and it's what I actually do with my life. It's living authentically, and that's it. It is very much living authentically. It's like the reward for going through triadic healing is you get to celebrate life. And all right, so yeah, what is triadic healing? What happened here? This thing is clicking and dragging, and now I lost where my little thing is. Oh, there it is. Okay. I see it now. So, yeah, we have getting started, remembering the God self, discipline, purging societal expectations, understand, unsticking the mind's processing. And it's almost like the promised land. That's really it. It's that end result, that El Dorado. I wish I could. It's really that point of just celebrating. And I wish I could understand what to call it, but it's now under there. So it's actually 4 stages. Well, the 3 stages is triadic healing, and then the other part is celebrating the God self. That's very much a part of it, is just that celebration of the God self. And yeah, it's really, I have a lot, and my brain is just running, constantly running. I'm going over, yeah. So we have celebrating the God self at the end of it. And that's basically, it's like the finale. It's you get to it, you live authentically, and then there you go, the authentic self. And it's just living your life to the fullest. And really, and that's it. It's living life to the fullest. It really is something. It is absolutely extraordinary. I'm trying to still, I hate it when I get stuck on ideas that I can't process, and I'm going to have to play around with it. But it's, yeah. So that's, you can see how it's, when you jump into triadic healing, it's the nurturing, the discipline, the understanding. And then after the healing, after the journey, it's just training the God self, basically. It's training, it's what I call magic training. Learning how powerful you really are through celebrating life through the authentic self. That's when you get to manifest. That's when you get to really just realize your true power, and you grow from it. And it's all because you understand. It's absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and decompress and just think about life, the universe, and everything now. And I might be on here a couple times later today. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to do a very light day because it's been a very hectic week. So hectic that I haven't even touched my Facebook page. And probably on Monday, I'm going to get back into doing things with the meditation. I took a week off of the meditation this week, and I really needed that. And I really needed to take a break from the meditation because there's a difference between doing it myself and then walking people through it. And I also wanted to figure out how I was going to do it and the best practices for doing it. So I definitely feel solid. I feel clear. I feel like there's 3 massive things in my brain, 3 goals. And the few weeks ago, about a week ago, I received massive comprehension, massive understanding. It's the night that I threw away all my psych books. I could feel it. I was done with this, and I went, I understand psychology. I have completed the mind. I understand subconscious minds. I see everything inside the mind. I'm done. And I threw all my psych books away with the exception of 3, which are my reading list. 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. Read it. That's how shadow work is done properly. Not Nice by Dr. Aziz Ghazipour. Gorgeous book. This list is on my website. And then the seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Those are my 3 psych books. Everything else is garbage. Everything else is garbage. It doesn't apply when you look at Triadic Healing. Triadic Healing completely wipes it all out and goes, well, that's obsolete. So I went through my books, and it's funny because when I read Not Nice and when I read, my shadow work is 100% based off of the work of Nathaniel Branden. His work is solid when it comes to proper shadow work. He's got that shit figured out, but Nathaniel would. He knows philosophy like no one knows philosophy. When you are the bed partner to one of the world's greatest 20th century philosophers, you know philosophy. And Nathaniel Branden did and was. So yeah, Nathaniel Branden knows philosophy, and it shows in his work. So I'm huge on absolutely promoting Nathaniel's work. Absolutely phenomenal psychologist. That is a man who fucking got it. Love Nathaniel. So that being said, that is my book list. And I threw everything out because I was done. I was like, well, I don't have any need for these psych books anymore. And they were worthless. So I threw them all out, and it was literally this massive, I felt like I had this huge psych textbook, and I just went, boom, closed. Well, that topic is done. What else do I have? And then this thing with my relationship, just comprehension. Last night it hit. Solid, full comprehension. Oh, I understand what this is. I understand what we are. I understand what we did. Okay. I now have my coordinates. And this is really, really important. In philosophy and in music theory, there is one primary law, the very first law of both of those fields. You cannot know who you are. You cannot identify the one chord. You cannot identify the one until you understand your relativity to something else. It is the relativity that defines who we are, which is why we have relatives. Relativity defines who we are. Now, in philosophy, it is the pursuit of relativity. And in music theory, well, they mathematically, using frequency, tell you what the relativity is. It's called relative minor, relative major, relative harmony, relative melody. Because you don't know what the 1 chord is until you know what the 5 chord is. And you can't tell what mode you're in until you know what the 3 chord is. The 1 chord is only the 1 chord dependent upon the 3rd and the 5th. It's all relative. If you lack relativity, you just have a note bopping around in the middle of the ocean. Okay, you got a C. What does that mean? C of what? Is that the 1st chord? Is that the 9th chord? Is that, what the fuck does that mean? So in music, you have to have the 3rd and the 5th, specifically the 5th. You must have the dominant chord, the dominant note, in relative to the tonic note, so you know what key signature you're in. The 5th must be there with the 1st. That's why it's a perfect 5th. You cannot know what key signature you're in without the 5th. 1-5. That 1-5 chord is everything. Because you could be looking, okay, it's a C. Well, is the chord ACE? Is the chord FAC? Is the chord CEG? Is the chord ACEG? What's the fucking chord? You don't know that until you know what the 5th is. And it's only the 5th with the 1st that you understand what it is. Now, you throw the 3rd in there, and now you know if you're dealing with a major or a minor mode. But you have to have the 3rd. It's all relative. In philosophy, it's the same thing. Who are we? Well, you don't know who you are until and unless you know your relative relationship to all of these topics. You have to know, in order to find out who you are, so says philosophy. Tell me this isn't psychology. If you don't know who you are, you need to know what your ethics are, because you need your ethics in relativity to you. You need your right and wrong and your morals in relativity to you. You need to know what you love and what you don't love in relativity to you. You need to know what your perspective is in relativity to all other perspectives. This is philosophy. Now, in psychology, there is no definition. It's not discussed. There's nothing. You're just in therapy talking about your feelings. You are looking for the self, And according to philosophy and to music, you can't know who you are without relativity. But we don't talk about relativity in psychology because they're idiots. They built an entire mental health practice without actually using psychology. They're idiots. So if you actually use philosophy like Nathaniel Branden did, then you would know that you require relativity to the self, to the core problem, so you have an understanding of who you are. Stephen Covey knew this. Stephen Covey studied philosophy. Dr. Aziz Gazipura knew this. Dr. Aziz Gazipura, Carl Jung also. They studied philosophy. Because in philosophy, we study psychology, which is the human is defined by their relativity to other things. So if you don't know what your relativity is, you don't know who you are. That is psychology. What's your relativity? That is called finding your coordinates. You don't know who you are or where you are in the world until and unless you have comparison, unless you have relativity. But we're comparing our perspective against a fourth perspective and societal expectations. And that's where it's all going wrong. You have to get your relativity based off of something that's actually something you can compare it to, which is your own ethical perspective. You must have other perspectives who understand your perspective. Now you have relativity. Now you can define who you are. Now you can remember, which is why we have relatives, family. But if your family are all three perspectives and they love beating people and they're violent and they're aggressive and they're toxic, and you are a vegetarian who values human rights, that's not really good comparison now, is it? You're not even on the same perspective. If you're a 6, you need to find 6s so you can gain relativity. If you're a 5, you need to find other 5s. This is why we seek out friends who understand us. This is why we seek out relationships who understand us, because we need the understanding to gain relativity. Understand for relativity. So it is remember who you are, understand, and there's the self. There is the self. But if you don't remember who you are, if you don't know what your ethics are, you're never going to be able to find other people with like ethics like you, so you know where you fit, so you know what your relativity should be, because your relativity has been stripped away from you. You're supposed to be doing this under your parents' supervision when you're 5, 6, 7, 8. Your parents are supposed to be giving you boundaries, acting as your boundary until you learn how to use your own boundaries. They are supposed to be teaching you how to use boundaries so that when you are ready to use boundaries, 7 or 8 years old, then you can go out, find friends, use boundaries, and locate the ones who are like your perspective, which we kind of do when we are in high school, which is why teenagers and elementary schoolers, anyone between the ages of infancy to about 17 years old has this mastered. But we fuck it up because we touch it. We shouldn't be touching it. Let the children be. Leave the fucking children alone. Trust the children. They know what to do. They already do it. We interfere with that shit. So you have a child who goes out, who finds their likeness. They find their clique. Their clique is actually people of the same perspective. And when they find their clique and they find their friends, now they've got relativity. But so many parents are like competing. Oh, well, you can't have friends because you have a family. Family before friends. That's perspective abuse. That's a societal expectation. So now you're being taken away from your community. Your community is whichever ethical perspective you are at. Abuse happens when you are told that you are not allowed to have your ethical perspective. So either you're not allowed to have the right friends, you're not allowed to have a certain type of friend, you're not allowed to wear certain clothes. Emu. Oh my God, the Gothic and the emu. I love those people so much. Those are people who absolutely get the identity. They love the shadow self. That's all they are. Emu, Gothic people, they are shadow self lovers. They celebrate the intuition. They are totally in tune with their God self. They are very healthy people with a significant amount of perspective abuse. So they're trying to do what they're supposed to be doing, which is completely embrace their shadow self, the emu, the Gothic, the BDSM, but they can't do that because societal expectations say you can't be that way. So they are hated on. They are lashed out. They are thrown away. If a child even starts to go emu goth, they are so rejected in most cases. It's horrible. Because fourth perspectives don't understand it. And if you don't understand it, you get thrown away. Because we live in a society where, oh, people are disposable. You don't throw them away, you don't understand it, just throw away what you don't understand. No, how about if you open your mind and learn to understand it? I love doing stuff for teenagers. Like I'm probably going to, after this, I'm going to focus on Triadic healing for teenagers. That's all I'm going to be doing. And that's going to be I'm going to love that so much. I am really looking forward to that. Triadic healing for teenagers, where they can just go through and, oh yeah, I'm probably going to like do that now because I don't want to wait. I want to do Triadic healing for teenagers. I fucking love teenagers because they get it. They are my people. I get to validate all of those teenagers because they're right. Trust the children. The children are right. You know, I came up with an exercise yesterday. This is the exercise for the day. Do this exercise. This is the exercise. You're not going to like this. Ask your child a question. Ask your child this question. If you could teach your parents anything about life or ethics, if you could tell your parents anything that they need to learn, what would you tell them? Don't just think about you with your parents. Ask your children that question. If your child could sit down and actually tell you, now, there's a couple ways this is going to go. If you're not open to the answer, you could turn around and abuse your child, yell at your child, defend yourself. You could internalize it. It is really important you give your child a psychological safe place to answer. And that requires that when they give you the answer, you need to keep your mouth shut and say, okay, thank you. And that is the end of it. That is not what third perspective parents do. Third and fourth perspective parents take that information and then they turn around and punish the child for being honest. That is not psychological safety. It is you opening up to receive criticism. So if you are not secure enough to receive criticism, don't have your children do this exercise. It is only for mature adults who can handle criticism. And if you can't, don't do it. Don't do it to your child. Because now you're forcing your child to say something they don't want to say, and they know if they're in danger from you or not. Children know when they are in danger from you or not. We also need to talk about danger, because there's a lot of dangerous parents out there who think they're safe, and they're not. Because there's psychological safety and physical danger. There's psychological danger and physical danger. And no one ever talks about what psychological danger actually looks like. Psychological danger is when there is a consequence for you just thinking. There is a consequence, a condition for you just having an opinion. That's psychological safety. Is there a consequence or conditions to how your child thinks? That's not psychological safety. And your child will know it. Your child can sense it. Their intuition is 3,000 times better than yours. Because your child has not yet been conditioned out of using their intuition. Your child is really tuned into the God self. They remember what you have forgotten because you have not yet beaten them out of it. Or conditioned them out of it. Or just threatened them out of it. Because you haven't put enough societal expectation on them. That usually happens around 17 years old. By the time a child reaches 17, 18, they finally get enough societal expectation that they start behaving. They start being obedient. Because after 18 years of abuse, that's when they finally understand societal expectation and the conditioning process is complete. That's when they completely destroy the God self and they become obedient little mirrors to whatever it is you want it. Yeah, I have a real big problem with modern parenting today. Children are right. Trust the children. Leave them the fuck alone. Because children know how to grow according to nature. Nature's already got the job taken care of. It's all automated. You just got to leave the child alone. But a lot of people like to throw that into immediate black and white thinking of, fine, I'll just ignore my child. That's passive aggressive. And that's neglect. And you've missed the point. Now you're just lashing out. There's a balance. And once you get it right into that sweet spot of that neutral zone, that right there in that neutral zone is where everything changes. It's when you realize I have to really truly give up control, trust nature to grow the child the way the child is going to grow, not get threatened by the child's own individuality, keep my own projection of my own security off of my child, limit the social expectations completely, as in my social expectations are not allowed to be put on my child. My child is allowed to practice whatever religion they want. My child is allowed to have whatever friends they want. And you are supposed to assume the role of, okay, this is a boundary, as in this is a projection onto my child. Period. That's it. You are supposed to only be monitoring for projections and internalizations. That's all you're supposed to be doing as a parent. Is someone projecting abuse onto your child? Are you most likely projecting your own expectations onto your child? And are you teaching your child healthy and effective means to make sure they don't internalize? But if you keep your own projection in check, then they will naturally learn how not to internalize it. They're literal, perfect mirrors of you. So when you have horrible, miserable kids who lash out at you, it's because you are horrible and you project it onto them. If you hate your kids, it's because you hate you. I have spent way too many therapy sessions with people listening to them hate on their children, while they themselves are completely projecting their abuse onto their child and then getting pissed off because their child isn't taking to their projections. Accountability is a really big lesson everyone needs to learn. Not holding somebody else accountable, it's holding yourself accountable. Self-accountability is a really, really tough one to cover. That is the fifth stage of growth. It is the fifth code of ethics when you are going through the code of authenticity. If you love shit like this, follow, like, subscribe, share, comment below. Let me know what part of the video you resonated with you the most, and help the garden grow. Donate below. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.